Zora Neale Hurston, a black woman born in 1891. Barnard and Columbia educated, Harlem Renaissance star, and queen of folklore. She was born in Alabama but moved as a toddler to Eatonville, which was the first all-black town. In 1937, she drops Their Eyes Were Watching God, a novel where Janie ditches society's rules for love, freedom, and self-revelation. Fame fades, money runs out, and Hurston dies in poverty in 1960.
Their Eyes Were Watching God is a novel written in 1937 by Zora Neale Hurston. It is a frame story beginning at the end as Janie Crawford returns to Eatonville, Florida. The townspeople gossip about her, speculating that her husband, Tea Cake, abandoned her. She confides in her friend Phoebe and begins telling her story. Raised by her grandmother, Nanny, Janie is married off to Logan Calix for security, but she's unhappy. She runs away with Joe, or Jody Starks, who becomes Eatonville's powerful mayor. However, Jody is controlling, and after 2 decades of marriage, Janie finally asserts herself. Before dying, Jody tries to silence her, but she refuses to. After Jody's death, Janie meets the charming Tea Cake. They marry and face some initial struggles, such as how, in the first week, Tea Cake steals Janie's money and leaves her alone for a night. So Janie thinks that he married her for her money. But luckily, Tea Cake returns and admits that his theft occurred in a moment of weakness and would never leave her again. The young Tea Cake and Janie move to Everglades, where they work during harvest season and socialize in the off-season, living a relatively happy life. However, a hurricane strikes and a rabid dog bites Tea Cake. He falls ill and hallucinates that Janie is unfaithful and turns violent. As Janie is forced to protect herself, she shoots him. A white jury finds her not guilty, and she returns to Eatonville, where her journey began.
We will now explore three themes seen in Their Eyes Are Watching God. Firstly, power. Power dynamics shape Janie's relationships, especially her one with Jody Starks. Jody embodies male dominance, silencing Jamie and controlling her appearance and her speech. Janie's silence during her marriage and her expectation to not respond to any of Jody's actions reflects societal oppression of women. Hurston, however, critiques how social expectations force women into submissive roles and denies them autonomy through her exploration of this relationship. Secondly, marriage and love. Janie's relationships illustrate her search for true love. Logan Killick offers security but lacks emotional connection. This is Janie's Nana's expectation of love, which Janie never agreed with. Secondly, with Jody Starks, while there's initially some love, that quickly dies down due to his controlling Janie and limiting her voice, although he provides her status. Tea Cake, despite his flaws, introduces a more equal partnership where Janie experiences genuine companionship and joy for the first time. Janie's understanding of love evolves as she learns that real love values mutual respect and freedom. Lastly, identity and freedom. Janie's journey is also about finding her identity and freedom. Jody's death marks a turning point, where Janie lets down her hair, something that Jody had forced her to tie up, which represents her attaining freedom and reclaiming her autonomy. Her final act of self-defense against Tea Cake, where she shoots him, reflects her ultimate realization of her self-worth as being independent from a man. Through these moments, Janie asserts her independence and finds peace within herself.
For the authorial choice of dialect and point of view, Hurston's use of African American Vernacular English, or AAVE, allows Hurston to use that dialogue to reflect authentic speech patterns of Black communities in the early 20th century South. Additionally, with the use of character differentiation, the dialect varies, which slightly between characters, which helps to distinguish their backgrounds, education levels, and personalities. Also, through the use of dialect, it allows a connection to African American oral storytelling traditions, which emphasizes community and cultural heritage. Finally, as a contrast with narration, the dialect-heavy dialogue contrasts with the more standard lyrical narration, which highlights Janie's inner world versus her external experiences. Next, for narration style, the use of third-person omniscient allows the narrator to provide insight into Janie's thought and emotions, offering a deeper understanding of her internal journey. For the lyrical and poetic prose, Hurston's narration includes metaphor, imagery, and folk wisdom, which creates a dreamlike and philosophical tone, which allows for reflection. The frame narrative, where the novel begins and ends with Janie telling her story to her friend Phoebe, reinforces storytelling as a key theme. And this also goes back to the oral tradition influence that was talked about with the dialect, authorial choice. And then the blending of voices, where the novel shifts seamlessly between the narrator's poetic voice and then the character's dialect-heavy speech, reflects Janie's development and self-discovery.
Okay, so I'm going to talk about dialogue in double entendre within this excerpt. And the background information on this excerpt is that this is when Janie and Tea Cake are talking and they are sort of reflecting on their marriage. And they are both very much fulfilled because Janie's saying that I'm with my husband in storm and all, and it's so many people that never seen the light at all. And so double entendre in this excerpt is through the word choice of light, which literally means that like a lot of people don't see the light, they don't get to experience this, but then on the other hand, it symbolizes Janie's character development, and I guess it means that she feels very enlightened and she realizes that true love is much more about like connection in souls than just marrying someone because of attraction. And then the use of dialogue is really important in this excerpt as well because it helps vocalizing Janie's character development and admitting it in a sense, and it shows that Janie and Tea Cake are extremely honest in their relationship, and she admits her journey, and it also enhances themes like seeking human relationships and honesty, and it's in a sense much more impactful than if Hurston would have used maybe like third person, which is less personal in a sense, but this shows that they are able to talk about these kind of things and that they are both very passionate about their marriage.
We will now explore symbolism. Firstly, the horizon. The horizon represents risks, dreams, and unknown possibilities that Janie craves. This quote is from when Janie is talking to Jody while still being married to Logan. Although Jody doesn't fit Janie's romantic expectations, as seen in the quote, he provides her with escape and ambition. This is what truly makes him appealing to Janie and her want for these dreams and possibilities. Secondly, we also see how Janie was confined by societal expectations through her reflection of after Jody's death, of how Nana took the horizon, something so vast, and choked Janie with it. This action demonstrates Janie's entrapment and lack of freedom forced by society. However, at the end, the horizon becomes internalized. She doesn't have to chase the horizon anymore because she now has the freedom and autonomy that she's always desired. She has now completed her emotional, physical, and spiritual journey and received inner peace and fulfillment.
Janie's hair isn't just hair. It's power, independence, and defiance, wrapped in long, flowing strands. From the very first scene of Their Eyes Are Watching God, the town fixates on her hair. The gossiping woman reduced her entire being to nothing except her long hair, exposing the way her beauty and perceived youth unsettles them. Joey Stark sees its power too, but instead of celebrating it, he controls it. By forcing Janie to tie it up, he suppresses her autonomy, fearing the attention she attracts. The head rag becomes a symbol of his dominance. After his death, Janie lets her hair down, literally and figuratively, reclaiming her identity. It's not just grief, it's liberation. Her hair stands as a bold rejection of societal control. The gun in Their Eyes Are Watching God serves as a symbol of Janie's agency and self-determination. Throughout the novel, Janie moves from passivity in her relationships to an empowered individual capable of making life-altering decisions. Her act of killing Tea Cake is not just self-defense, but a pivotal show of control, contrasting her earlier experience of submission. This moment also underscores the tension between love and survival. Tea Cake represents both passion and danger, forcing Janie to confront the paradox of caring for someone who has become a threat. The gun, therefore, becomes more than a weapon. It is a culmination of her growth. It becomes a tool of empowerment, signifying her final break from dependence.
For the two possible paper 2 questions with a summary and also a connection to another book we've read, for our first question, we've chosen compare the role of violence in at least 2 works studied in class. And through this question, we believe it'll be very helpful to compare Their Eyes Were Watching God to Blindness by Jose Saramago. And that's because in Their Eyes Were Watching God, violence is deeply personal and demonstrated through the lens of Janie's marriages as an indicator of the power dynamics that loom over them. Physical and emotional abuse, like Joe's control over Janie and Tea Cake's possessive violence, reflects societal norms about gender and the role of dominance. In Blindness, violence is presented by Jose Saramago as a breakdown of civilization. As the blindness epidemic spreads, so does fear and uncertainty, which leads to a collapse in societal structure. This leads to brutal acts that are driven by desperation and a need for survival. Thus, while Hurston's use of violence is rooted in personal oppression, Saramago's is representative of a dystopian example of human morality in crisis. Next, for question 2, we chose, in what ways do the concepts of dominance and submissiveness reflect the cultural context of the works you have studied? So we chose to use this question to compare Their Eyes Were Watching God to The Handmaid's Tale, saying in Their Eyes Were Watching God, dominance and submissiveness reflect early 20th century gender roles, particularly in the Black community. Janie's relationships, especially with Joe Starks and Tea Cake, shows how societal expectations enforce male dominance and female submission, though Janie ultimately seeks independence. In The Handmaid's Tale, dominance and submission are institutionalized through Gilead's theocratic regime, where women are stripped of their own autonomy and they're forced into roles that serve the men's power. So while Hurston critiques personal and unwritten cultural expectations of gender, Atwood presents a dystopian exaggeration of patriarchal control, showing how extreme subjugation can be gilded by the justification of tradition and morality. Also, just a side note, due to technical difficulties, my face wasn't able to be in this clip, but this is Yasmin. Thanks for watching. Bye.